User was moved to your channel.
Oh, hello.
Good evening, everyone.
User was moved to your channel. User was moved to your channel.
We'll begin. We'll begin shortly when everyone's in, and also when Chris is ready. So sit tight for a second, and we'll be starting shortly.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the session. We are just doing our best to gather the remaining sheep who are scattered far and wide, and once we've done that, we will get started. For those of you who've got a little microphone with a cross next to it, next to your name, that means your microphone is not set up.
Microphone
Likely
activated.
I'm just muted, man, because I'm eating. So.
Okay.
User was moved to your channel. User was moved to your channel. User was moved to your channel.
Good evening.
Hello.
Evening.
It says I was moved. I'm trying to fight. Oh, wait, there I am. Sorry, 2 seconds. Very big TeamSpeak server.
Okay, we're going to make a start. My name's Chris. I'm one of the vatsim UK instructors. And this evening you're doing the observer to group session. This session should last just over 1 hour of teaching. There's a few moments where we have to stop and do different bits and pieces. We have some time for questions at the end, and we'll explain what the remainder of the training process is going to look like when we're done with the session today. The session is designed to introduce everybody to a series of topics that are designed to get you up and running with being a controller. Some of those topics you'll know already. Some of those topics will be new to you. I apologize for the boring parts, but please try not to spend time browsing the internet, talking to other people in other mediums, basically being distracted from the session, because we move forward fairly quickly and we need everybody to be moving forward with us when we need you to show that you've achieved certain tasks in the session. So this isn't a session where you can turn up and disappear for an hour and a half and come back and get your achievement of having been here. It's an interactive training session, so you have to be interactive and be here. Secondly, please try not to interrupt the session in the sense that you might have other off-topic questions. Of course, there's lots of stuff still left to learn, and there's lots of different things that we will cover in the coming months and weeks as we do your training. But please try not to drag us into a tangent this evening. Of course, if you have questions about what we're talking about, we welcome those questions, and it might not be that you're the only person who's wondering what's going on a particular topic. But as I said, please don't drag us into another side issue. Andy's with me here, I hope.
Yes, I am.
And Andy's going to do some of the speaking as well, just so that I can take a breather from talking, and we'll sort of alternate through the topics.
Yep. And just to say, guys, I'm also one of the instructors of AT UK. I'm also in charge of training at Gatwick. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. Alright.
Okay, so we just need to quickly go through and check that everybody's there and their TeamSpeak works. So let's start with Alistair and just check you're there. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi, Chandler.
Hello.
Joe.
Hello.
Jordan.
Hello.
Mark.
Hi there.
Matthew.
What up?
Hi, Miguel. Hi, Nathan. Nothing heard. Try again.
Transmitting, but nothing's coming out.
Okay, Peter.
Hello.
Hi, and Richard.
Hello.
Hi there. So yep, hello. Was that Nathan? Okay, hi. So everybody should be using EuroScope. Everybody should have that downloaded and installed. Does anybody not have that?
That would be me. I asked somebody today if I needed it, and they went, no. So just give me a sec, I'll get it now.
Okay, you also need to download the Observer controller pack. Does anybody not have that?
That would be me again.
Yeah, that's all right. The link is in the bottom for you. So just while Alistair is downloading that, the Observer to S1 process is sort of 3 stages, and you can do the first 2 stages in any order that you like. You have to come to the Observer group session here and have to complete that. You have to do an online training course in the Moodle system, and you have to pass the S1 theory exam. Once you've passed the S1 theory exam and you've been to this training session, then you are added to an individual RTS, a geographical location in the country. There they have airports at which you can do the practical training. You'll have a mentoring session one-on-one with a mentor, They'll explain to you some more practical aspects of being a controller. They will then assess your abilities, and they'll then add you into their training program. And when you've completed all of the steps, then you're awarded the S1 rating, and you can begin controlling. As I said, we'll explain more at the end of the session exactly what the next steps are, where you can and can't do your training, and so on and so forth. But for now, we're going to concentrate on doing, let's say, these basics, and move forward from there. Right now, does anybody have any questions about what's going to happen in the next hour, or anything that's super urgent that we need to address before we begin?
They'll launch EuroScope now.
We'll take you through that
Okay,
as we get there. In fact, Andy's about to introduce that among other things. All right, Andy.
Yeah, so first thing really to talk about is this TeamSpeak server. So this is the official vatsim UK TeamSpeak, as well as the forum. It is kind of the main place of activity for vatsim UK. It's where it's where a lot of your training will take place, where you do a lot of coordinating with other controllers, and also, when it comes to it, the place where you'll be sitting with examiners taking your formal exams for some of the higher up ratings. So the TeamSpeak is roughly split up into kind of 4 main categories. So the first category of channels are the generic kind of rooms and the RTS rooms. Those rooms, pre-access, you're more than welcome to kind of pop in, have a chat with people, sing if that's your thing. The RTS specific rooms sometimes might be used for RTS meetings, so do be aware of that. But by and large, the RTS rooms and the generic rooms are all there for everyone to enjoy, chill out, and talk to like-minded people. Second level of rooms, which you'll notice just above the rooms we're in, you've got the coordination rooms. So these are rooms that are specifically here for people to control and coordinate and chat and talk about controlling things with other controllers. So the idea with these rooms is that if you're not in there to actually actively coordinate, you shouldn't be in those rooms. So if you're actually controlling and there's other people controlling around you, then you can sit in those rooms and coordinate your controlling. If you want to have a chat with your mate, pop in to do your coordination and then drop out again so you can go and have a chat. So the idea is that they are quiet rooms where you're only talking about strictly controlling stuff so that people can concentrate. Rooms we're in now are the mentoring rooms. So those are the rooms in which that you will receive your training. So when you do a mentoring session like this one, you'll log on to TeamSpeak as will your mentor, and you'll congregate in one of these rooms to do your training. In terms of access in these rooms, the rules are that if you wish to access the room, you have to ask permission from the mentor. So a quick PM on TeamSpeak, or if you're controlling on EuroScope, say, can I pop down to coordinate? If they say yes, come right in, do your coordination. And with permission, you can also hang around in the room if you think you might have to coordinate a lot. Other than that, you are allowed to pop in to coordinate, but you do need to leave again afterwards because the mentor will also be teaching the student in that room. And the final room's right at the bottom, exam rooms. So when you have an exam, you will go into one of those rooms with the examiners and your adjacent controllers, and that's where you will take your exams. In terms of access for those rooms, the rules are very simply, you don't go into an exam room without the permission of an examiner. So if you're controlling adjacent, again, a quick message to the examiner, say, can I come in? He will, very, very, very unlikely not to say yes. And then you can pop in and coordinate. And if you don't really need to sit around, by all means, if you want to have a chat with your mate as well, leave the exam room and then come back if you need to. Is everyone fairly happy with the kind of the rules and regulations of the TeamSpeak?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. There is a web page. If you go to the main vatsim UK web page, there is a TeamSpeak section that has everything that I've just gone through. It also has the house rules. So if you break one of those rules, you can expect to be probably first of all told about it, and then, well, it depends how badly you mess up. But all the rules and everything you need to have a nice time on TeamSpeak is all online. So, is everyone happy with EuroScope install?
Yeah, I think
Yep.
I've got it in now, yeah.
Lovely. In that case, if everyone could open up EuroScope. And so you should have the observer controller pack installed, which will come with a single profile file. So I believe that's called observer.prf. And the profile files are the files that hold all your settings. So what lines you want to have, what pieces of text you want to have on your screen, all the settings for your controlling. So if you open EuroScope and then navigate to your observer pack install, and then choose to open up the observer.prf.
That's a nice tune.
Yeah, it's really loud as well.
I think Jordan opened it.
That was loud.
You can turn that off, by the way. There is a setting, but if you want to know about that, ask me at the end.
Will do.
So when you has everyone got that open?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lovely. So by default, you should have open what looks a bit like a ground layout of an airport.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything like that. I just have sector inbound lists and a black screen.
I just have black boxes and a black screen. Yeah, it shows errors when I first launch it.
Mine's just like Heathrow.
You should.
Yeah.
You should ideally just have Heathrow.
If you don't, then you've installed the files in the wrong location. It must be in documents/Euroscope/observer.
Yep, they're in there. It's just throwing me errors.
Make sure you've opened the right profile. Because they opened one by default for me that wasn't right.
When you first open it, it asks you to choose a profile. And then you just choose the observer folder, and then there's only one file in that other than another folder. You just choose that one file.
Yeah. It should all be set up, so as long as you've installed it, as Chris says, into my documents/Euroscope, and also that you've got set to the profile, it should just all load up automatically.
Hey, fixed it.
Excellent. Is anyone else still trying to sort it out?
Yeah, I'm still trying to sort mine out.
So, yes, just make sure that you've got the observer package just plainly in my documents/Euroscope, and that will be the same for when you go on to download the actual controller pack we use for controlling on a daily basis. Same principle there; it just goes straight out into the EuroScope folder. Nice and simple.
Yeah, it's definitely there. If you want me to screen cap it, I can show it's done.
A screen cap might be useful, just so we can see what you've got.
If you go open SCT, open, and then navigate to the observer.prf file, what happens?
So,
Yeah, that was the problem I had. I didn't have the observer pack. It was the folder before the observer in my directory.
which ASR file are you want me to select?
The ASR file, I will have to check.
You should be able to open the observer.prf file.
Yeah, it's not giving me the option. It's just throwing me into observer data.
Yeah, so where you've got observer and data, choose observer, then click open.
Yeah, he's just Skype sharing with me now.
Yeah,
So I'm just showing. So he's opened EuroScope. It asked him to open the PRF file, which he's done. The image he's posted is what he sees now, after opening the PRF file.
And if you go to open sector, open, and then select the observer PRF file, does it change that at all?
It doesn't show up. It's looking for a ASR file.
Okay, then close EuroScope down and then check the location of the observer folder.
Right, yeah, I just click EuroScope 3.2, select the observer.prf file.
Yeah, and it should be in C:/users/ your username / documents /
Yeah, in
EuroScope
document.
/ observer.
In the dot, I just noticed in the dot,
Yeah,
the
it's
message bar at the
in-
bottom, it throws an error opening Heathrow SMR.AR ASL.
If it's throwing an error trying to find the ASR, that could possibly be a pathing issue. If you try OpenSCT and then if you go question open and then go into data and ASR, try loading the Heathrow SMR from there, and that might find it.
Did you say you were using 3.2 EuroScope?
Yep.
Everyone else is using 3.1D.
I'm using 3.2.
It shouldn't matter which one you run it in. The files, for purpose of sector files, are all both compatible with each of them, so it should run the same.
Right, it just throws me a box when I select the ASR file. Do you want to use the active sector file instead? So it cannot find the sector file.
Okay, then choose no.
It just throws me back to the box.
Yeah, and then it should give you a choice to navigate to a new sector file. Does it not do that?
I haven't got a sector file.
The sector file should be an observer / data / sector. Then it's called egtt.sct.
I'll see if this fixes it for me. Right, finally.
Good stuff. So now everyone hopefully should have the should be the ground layout of London Heathrow. It's a slightly old layout, I will add. Doesn't quite look the same anymore, but you should all have a layout which is Heathrow. So this is a view you'll become quite accustomed to as you go through your training, especially in the early stages. Pretty much every airport will have a kind of a layout very similar to this in terms of what you'll see on the screen. Some slight differences, but by and large you'll get an outline of the airfield, and also things like stand numbers and holding points written on there in text. Important thing for EuroScope, especially when you start to move up the ratings, is the quick switching between the ASR files. So if everyone pushes F1 and then follows that up with 2, you should switch over to something that looks a bit more like an airspace diagram than a ground diagram.
Yep, I got that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So EuroScope allows you to have multiple ASRs set up on one profile. So when you're controlling a few airports, you can just use your F1 and your letter to flick, and your number to flick between various views, airports. Or if you've got a couple of ground setups and you want one that particularly looks by the runway, you can flick between your displays like that, and that's a really quick and easy way when you're busy to flick around.
Is that compatible with like double monitors?
EuroScope in general is absolutely fine with double monitors on the sense that you can put it on either screen you want. And if you want to, you may open up more than one EuroScope instance, which will then allow you to have one instance connected to the other. But if you want to talk about that, It's a little bit off topic. We'll go through it after the session if you want to know how to multi-screen your EuroScope. Okay, so now the best bit. So connecting to the network. So in the top left corner of your EuroScope, there will be a big button that says connect.
Do you want me to click that?
Yeah, everyone click that one. And what will come up is a dialog which will be your connection details for vatsim. So everyone got that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so right at the top, select connection mode. You should all have direct to vatsim selected.
Yeah.
Excellent. So call sign, as we're going to log on tonight as an observer. So your call sign will be ideally your initials and then an underscore followed by OBS. So this is the convention for observers. So the observer convention is your initials followed by OBS. Sometimes if you've got a very popular set of initials, I know that I do, you may have to change that, at which point stick your middle initial in there as well. And that's an easy way just to get around things. But generally speaking, your initials and OBS to say that you're an observer. As a side note, you may see a few people wandering around with ins and sup. For the moment, don't worry about those. Facility, for tonight, set yourself as observer. Depending on the position you're controlling, that will change. So when you start doing ground, you'll set it to ground, and so on and so forth for tower. Real name, as it says on the book. You do have to log into vatsim with your real name, so make sure you put your full real name that you registered with. Rating for all of you guys will be observer, so right at the top of the list you will have observer, so select that one. Certificate, that's your vatsim CID, so you should all have quite a large numeric number. That is your vatsim CID, so that goes into the certificate box. Everyone with me so far?
Yep.
Yep.
I'm just getting my vatsim details.
Okay. Next up, server. That's completely up to you which one you choose. I would suggest you choose the one that's closest to where you live. Don't worry about connectivity between servers. All the vatsim servers are connected, so even if you're on the Singapore server, you'll still be connected to anyone who's on the UK server. Password, again, second part of your vatsim details. That's something only known to you, so you should all know your password for the network. So that goes in there. Don't worry about the info lines for the moment. Range. So for observers, the maximum visibility range is 300. I would strongly suggest not going much above 100, if that. At this point, you don't generally need to see that far. But 300 is the hard limit before supervisors come and ask you to turn it down. Stuff below that, again, that's more advanced stuff. Ask me if you want to know after the session. So if everyone's got their details typed in, if you all click connect at the bottom, it should pop you onto the network.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find my password.
Okay. When you first connect, you will get a little box come up with voice communication setup. Just leave that one out for now. That's something we'll come on to slightly later on in the session.
So we just hit close.
Yeah, just hit close on that one for now. That's just a standard box that comes up because it assumes you want to control and or listen to something.
Sorry, the CID, am I right in thinking that that's like my vatsim login, like user?
133.
Yeah. It's saying that mine is invalid. Just give me a sec.
Probably your password is invalid.
Excellent. So, is everyone happy online? Can you all see things moving? Or it looks like,
Yeah.
looks like you can see
Oh
it
yes,
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Excellent. So, Depending on which way you're looking at it, you may see either some aircraft on the ground at Heathrow, or if you're in the radar screen, you may see aircraft flying around Heathrow, or around the country as a whole. So this is what it looks like, as a way of putting it. Some important airfields, if you go into your little radar view rather than the ground view. With Heathrow at the centre, some important airfields you may see just to the south of Heathrow. You've got Gatwick, and all the airfields are given what's known as an ICAO code. So EGKK, for example, is Gatwick. EGLL is Heathrow. For those of you around Essex, EGSS being Stansted. In the southwest, you've also got EGGD, which is Bristol. So whenever we talk about positions on the network, in terms of log-on call signs, it's, with a few exceptions, it's always done based on the ICAO code. So if you all look on the far right of the screen, you should see quite a large list of what appears to be ICAO codes, and then lots of suffixes like tower, ATIS, app, and CTR. Has everyone got a nice list of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that list there is your controller list. So that list has everyone who's online. It can be filtered, so if you see all the buttons along the top of the list, if you tick them all, that will show absolutely everything. And then you can untick them to hide certain ones. So for example, unticking C hides all the CTR positions, unticking O will hide all the observers, and so on and so forth. So if you've got a very, very long list, you can filter it as you please. So if I pointed out, for example, as an example, EGLL_S_T_TWR, what would people say that they'd be controlling?
Tower.
Heathrow Tower.
Heathrow Tower.
Yeah, correct. Heathrow Tower. So, as I said, but with only one or two exceptions, it's the ICAO code, possibly some identifier in the middle if there's multiple positions of that type, and then followed by, finally, the suffix of the position. So, GND for ground, DEL for delivery, TWR for tower, and app for approach. Right. I think that's all from me for the moment, at least. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks. We have to talk about a couple of topics which are important when you're controlling aircraft, and that is meteorology, about the weather. We're first going to talk about how we measure the distance that the aircraft is above the ground, and that sounds like a trivial thing to think about and measure, but of course it's very important as a controller to know how high aircraft are off the ground, because that's one of the ways in which we ensure that planes both miss the ground and miss each other. The way in which aircraft themselves measure their distance off the ground is by taking advantage of the fact that the air pressure changes as you get higher. So we know that this is true from let's say human experiences. We know that when you're doing sport activities in countries that are with a very high elevation, it's more difficult to breathe because the air pressure is lower, so there's less oxygen in the air and you get tired quicker. And if you go to even higher extremes, if you go to the very highest the places in the world, then you start needing to take oxygen and so on with you. So we can take advantage of this by fitting a device into the plane which measures the change in pressure, and we can then use that change in pressure to work out how high we are. The problem that we have as pilots is that the air pressure itself also changes independently of how high you are. So for example, when it's very good weather, the pressure is very high, and when it's very bad weather or very windy, the pressure is typically very low, or relatively low, let's say. So we also have to correct for the fact that the weather causes the pressure itself to change, and we can do that by measuring the pressure independently and providing that information to pilots so that they can configure configure the aircraft effectively. I just need to go and let my cat out, otherwise he's going to meow at me for the next 5 minutes while I talk at you.
Poor cat.
RIP cat.
Okay, I'm back. So we measure the pressure on the ground with its instrument separate to the plane. We then give that information to the pilot so he can set the altimeter correctly so that his altimeter reads the right air pressure. So we can measure the pressure that the pilot needs basically to set his altimeter to read 0 when he's on the ground, and then when he's 1,000 feet off the ground, the altimeter reads 1,000. And that's great because we can then make sure that everybody who's flying at the same airport sets the same pressure and sets the same pressure setting, and then as long as we give altitudes that ensure they don't crash into each other, then everything is fine. So that pressure setting is known as the QFE, and the QFE then will read the altimeter will read then what is known as your height, the number of feet that it is between you and the ground. And that's all fine, but the problem with that is that if I now move, let's say, slightly away from the airport that I took off from, as I fly further and further away from that, my calibration pressure setting no longer applies because the pressure will change as I move, let's say, from Gatwick up to Stansted and up to Norwich or something like that. So every time I speak to a new air traffic controller, I have to check in and get a new altimeter setting so that my altimeter reads the correct number so that I can ensure that I'm flying either high enough above the ground or separated from other aircraft. And that's fine. It just becomes very tiresome to keep on doing that, especially when you're in a big plane moving very fast. You cover a lot of space very quickly and you might have to apply a lot of pressure changes. So we came up with a convention that basically allows us to, instead of providing pressure settings locally, we can actually just above a certain height set a standard pressure setting, make some correction to all of the levels that we use to separate aircraft as we change from one setting to another, and we then can actually maintain the same pressure setting from start to finish throughout our entire flight. So when we go through the transition altitude, in the UK that's 3,000 feet by default, and in most places 6,000 feet. We then set a standard pressure called well, it's set to 1013, and then we everybody above that particular altitude sets 1013, and we can all then be separated from one another. The important thing that we have to make sure is that when we go through that altitude, we're above the highest piece of terrain, because it can happen that you set an altimeter setting that makes it look like you are safe against the terrain, but because you've changed your altimeter setting, you've actually inadvertently put yourself too low, and ultimately will crash into the mountain. So we ensure that we're higher than the highest peak. So that's why in certain countries it's higher than others, because they're more mountainous, and then we all of us continue on the same pressure setting. The difficulty with trying to unify one pressure setting is that I mentioned at the beginning that we're all in the beginning measuring our the way in which we are, the distance between us and the ground relative to the aerodrome we took off from, because I wanted to make my altimeter read 0 when I was on the ground. And so did another pilot, but he took off from an airport that was, let's say, 500 feet higher than mine. So now we have a problem, because now there might be a 500 feet discrepancy between our altimeters. Well, the way in which we get around this is we actually, instead of measuring typically with respect to the aerodrome we took off from, we actually decided that we will measure how high we are based on the mean sea level around the world. And this is a worldwide standard, and so we can therefore actually set our altimeter such that when we are 0 feet above the mean sea level, that is what we will set our pressure setting to be. And we call this pressure setting the QNH, probably you've heard of it already. And let's say most pilots who are flying IFR will be, when they're below the transition altitude, will fly with the QNH set. so that they are measuring how high they are above the ground with respect to the mean sea
Microphone
level,
activated.
and we call this the altitude to indicate that it's different to the height. So those are the three different altimeter settings. We have the standard setting, the QNE, which is 1013. We have the QNH, which is set to the altimeter setting with respect to the mean sea level, and QFE, which is the altimeter setting which will read 0 when we're on the airport that we took off from. When we pass through the transition altitude, we change from QNH to QNE. And we no longer need to know what the air pressure is in a local sense. So now we need to move away from altimetry and start talking about the wind. This is also important when you're controlling because it has a big impact on the way in which planes are flown. The first thing to note is that runways are numbered according to the direction that they face with respect to the magnetic North Pole. So for example, on the screen you've got in front of you, we're looking at Heathrow. The runways are east-west facing approximately, and on the north side, if you take the top right-hand corner, this is a runway facing from the top right-hand corner to the top left-hand corner. This runway is 27 because it faces west, so a bearing of 270 degrees, and it's 27 right because it is the right-hand runway. And the other runway, which is towards the south side of the airport, facing in the same direction, is 27 left because it's the left-hand runway as you look at it, and it's facing a bearing of 270 degrees. And this is important to know because the wind determines which runway we will choose, and the wind direction is an important factor. So you should have the Heathrow METAR been loaded for you, and that indicates to me that the wind is coming from the southeast this evening. So the wind is coming from a direction of 150 degrees, which is the south at the bottom right hand corner of your screen. And it is blowing towards the top left-hand corner. So right now in the UK, the wind is coming from the direction of, let's say, Belgium, and it's blowing towards Northern Ireland and out towards the Atlantic Ocean, predominantly. So because a pilot wants to ensure that he has as much air flowing over the wing as he completes his takeoff, then he wants to position his aircraft so that the wings are pointing into the wind, so that the airflow is blowing across the nose of the aircraft, over the wings, towards the tail. So he chooses to fly or depart this evening, or the air traffic controller tells him, in fact, to depart from runway 09 right. That's on the bottom left-hand corner of the airport. Because the runway faces 090 degrees, the wind is blowing from 150 degrees. So it's blowing from his right-hand side towards him and over the aircraft's wings, and then to the left-hand side and the back of the aircraft. It's sort of blowing diagonally, but it is still blowing across the wing. And it's better for the aircraft to have it that way rather than blowing from behind them as they take off. I mentioned that the METAR is displayed in EuroScope. You should have it in two places. The first is on the top line. It's in white or orange, and it says EGLL, then 15008 KT, and then Q1015. And then below it, there should also be a box which says METARs in green, and then it should have also the same information, except this time with the letter B at the beginning. This gives us abbreviated weather information. We can tell that it is right now actually quite a nasty evening in Heathrow. The wind is quite, well, relatively moderate, blowing, as I said, from the southeast. It's right now 12 degrees C, and the air pressure is 1,015 hectopascals or millibars, or just slightly above one atmosphere. So 1 atmosphere would be 1,000. In this case, we're slightly above the standard pressure, which means it's just, slightly better than normal weather. Well, the pressure is slightly higher than normal. Of course, it depends on the trends and so on. But you can also receive other meta information from a full meta by clicking on the code. That doesn't mean that we expect you to know what all these things are, but you should be able to at least identify the wind. The first 3 numbers tell you the direction, the second 2 numbers tell you the strength in nautical miles per hour, and then the air pressure comes after the Q. Those are the important bits of information. Does anybody not see the meta displayed on the screen?
Yeah, I've got the same problem, just seeing those big green boxes everywhere instead of in place of everything that should be there, basically.
Okay, type F2 and then EGLL and then enter.
Oh, I did that to get my meta displaying, and now I've had a
Same.
message from Heathrow Tower saying thanks for the ATC spam, so I'm
Same
not
here.
quite sure what I did.
Okay.
I think we took too much meta. I don't know.
Yeah, so basically mine shows on the very top green bar now in an orange text.
Okay, good. So you can get more information out of this than I described, but I'm not going to spend time talking about it this evening. The important thing is to understand, of course, we're not in a real tower looking out of a window, so we can't get the weather information as you normally would by, well, feeling and seeing it, observing it. Instead, you actually have to sort of interpret it from a text string, which updates every 30 minutes.
Is
Okay.
that real? Is that actual what's at Heathrow now?
That's what was reported at Heathrow at 10 to 8 in the UK. This evening.
And do you ever get those situations where it doesn't quite match up with maybe somebody's ASN or something?
Well, if someone has configured ASN correctly, then it should always be synchronized.
Cool.
If they choose use vatsim weather and the ASN options, it always synchronizes to the same meta we're using. But you can sometimes get a half an hour disparity.
And when I've done the F2 and then EGL to get it display, and then it disappears after a certain amount of time, can you get it to stay there, or will it just always do that?
You can, but it needs you to set up your EuroScope in a different way, a slightly different way.
Okay.
It doesn't know that. Basically, it doesn't know that you want to look at Heathrow as an airport.
Okay, I see.
For some of it, it's already built into the files. But when you are observing, when you're controlling, for example, it should choose all of the appropriate information and display it to you. So it will always show you your airports of interest to you.
Okay.
Okay, Andy.
Okay, so next part to do with EuroScope is all about setting up your voice rooms, setting up your frequencies so that you can actually listen to aircraft and conversely speak to them. So in the top left of EuroScope, just to the right of the connect button, you should see what looks like a little headset.
Yep.
So if everyone clicks that, that will bring up the panel that you would have seen when you first connected to the network, which is the voice communication setup.
Yep.
So everyone should have one line in there for an example. Does anyone not have that?
I have 121.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah, I don't have any lines.
Okay.
My Euroscope's just broken everywhere.
Okay. We'll just go through another bit first, and when we'll come back to that, and we'll just make sure everyone has got a line because we need to make a few changes anyway. If you will click on hardware setup in the middle of the box, it should pop up with a dialog which then allows you to set what your hardware is for when you're controlling. So you should have the primary and secondaries. So the primary one is when you're actually controlling. The secondary is if you're just listening to someone. That's what you would use to listen effectively. So you can go in there. You can select your headset. Maybe if you're just listening, you might want to set your secondary as your speakers, so you can listen from afar. So you need to, when you're controlling, you will at the very minimum need to have your primary one set. The secondary is generally optional, but if you want to listen, I would advise setting a secondary. The squelch test is just setting your mic so that it only picks up sound that you want to pick up. We won't go too much in detail for the test now, but pretty much when you want to run the squelch test, you just click the button next to it and follow the instructions on the screen, which I believe is just staying quiet for about 5 seconds, and then it works out what your squelch should be. Important one at the bottom of that form, you've also got the transfer buttons or the PTT buttons. So those are your buttons. When you push them, you start transmitting over the frequency. Again, one for primary, one for secondary. The primary one is the one you will use when you're controlling. The secondary one, very rarely you might use it, but it may be worth setting one anyway. In terms of which key you set, any key that EuroScope can recognize and that you're happy with is a good one to set. Personally, I use left and right control, but it's completely up to you which one you choose to use. I will also add in terms of your inputs and outputs, there are generally 2 options for each thing. So one of them is direct sound and the other is wave. We generally tend to use direct sound. Direct sound tends to be a bit cleaner. You'd also have the option of a bass filter. So if you want it to sound like a proper VHF radio, quote unquote, then if you select the bass filter, it takes out all the bass. So it sounds like something you might hear actually in the air. If you have the bass filter off, it sounds more like something that has come through a computer first. But that's all personal preference. So if everyone close to the hardware dial now and come back to the voice communication setup. So who here hasn't currently got an example in their list of
Yep, I haven't got
frequencies?
any.
I haven't got one either.
Okay. So if you at the bottom of the setup, you'll see a number of boxes. So what we'll do for you guys, and also everyone else, just follow through and just kind of listen to what we're doing, and so you know how to do it in the future. So the first box is the name. So for the name, you would set whatever you want it to be, something that's particularly memorable. But as Chris has just put at the bottom there, those are the things you can, for tonight's purpose, you can should put in name, example, and the frequency 121.000. So those would be your some name that's memorable for you, so the name of the position and the frequency of the position.
Just a hint, in the future, if you're controlling and the name matches the call sign you've logged in as, then the EuroScope will assume you automatically want to use that as your voice setup and tune it automatically.
It's a useful little feature. The voice server, you've got some choices. Depending on where you are, you may want to use various different ones. For the UK, the general recommended one is either there's 2 potential ones. You can either use uk1.vatsim.net, and there is another alias for it which escapes me. I believe it is uk.voice.vatsim.net or something along those lines.
It is.
Yeah. So those 2 are just aliases for the same server. It's just you can choose whichever one you fancy. They all go to the same place. So for the guys who haven't got those details already in your list, if you fill in the ones that Chris has put in the bottom for our example, and the final one at the bottom is the channel. So the channel matches up with your generally, really speaking, with the position that you're controlling. So just the call sign. So in tonight's case, we'll use EGXX_GND for an example. I will add it doesn't have to be exactly the same as the position you're controlling. It can be different, but it's good practice just to match it up with your call sign. So for those of you that don't have an entry, if you now, once you filled all that in, if you click on New, it should then create for you a new entry in your list of voice channels, which should have all that information in there for you. Has anyone not managed to do that?
Yeah, it's all done.
Excellent. For the guys that did already have it there, you may see that your voice server, instead of being uk1.vatsim.net, it's just a uk.vatsim.net. Is anyone in that category?
I've got
Yep.
uk.vatsim.net.
Same here.
Okay, that's us needing to update the pack then. So the uk.vatsim.net is the old server. It no longer exists. So you'll need to change that. All you have to do to change it, click on the entry in the list. It will then populate the fields at the bottom with the details for that entry. And all you have to do is go to the server and change UK to UK1 and click modify.
My modifier is grayed out for
Yes,
some reason.
same here.
Click on the actual example first.
Yep, done that.
Do you have any of the boxes next to the example in the list actually ticked?
RCV text and XMT text. I don't even know. Wait, with
make sure,
arrows.
make sure that those boxes are all unticked.
Ah, right.
When you tick those
Got it.
boxes,
Yep.
they actually start setting things up to transmit and control. So you need to have them all unticked to do any modifications.
Must have hit it by accident. Yep, it's modified.
Yeah, same here, modified. What's that weird like tingling noise?
Don't know. Do
Occasionally.
you smell toast?
Oh, possibly you might be receiving a voice transmission or a text transmission. That would sound like that's a bit like a tingling noise. Anyway, so that is how you set up the voice room. What we'll quickly do is, if everyone's got some sort of hardware set up, what we'll do quickly is I will start up this particular voice channel because it won't affect anything on the network, and just give you guys a chance to just test your mic over the network, make sure you can hear things, hear each other, and also transmit.
Do I need to tick any of those boxes?
Okay, so if everyone now ticks receive voice, transmit voice, receive text, and transmit text, what you should see should be somewhere near your metars. You will also see a big list, which is the voice list, and that will show you everyone who's currently tuned into your voice room.
Yep.
So you should have myself and Chris, and then you should have lots of other people. The important button that I'm ticking is the prim button. So the prim is a primary frequency. So when you tick that, it then becomes live to the network, and other controllers and pilots, importantly, can see that you are running that frequency.
Do we tick that, yeah?
For tonight's example, yes, tick that just for now. Don't worry about ticking that if you're just observing and listening to people. It's for the controllers.
So to confirm, we are ticking the prim button.
Yeah, tick the prim box for now. Is everyone in and connected to the voice room? They can see everyone else is in there as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Waiting for Chandler.
Yep.
Just one quick question with the push to talk key. Does it have to be a keyboard key? Because it's like rejecting my mouse keys, which I usually use, and my joystick keys.
I believe you can set up mouse and joysticks, but I can't for the life of me tell you how to configure that.
I think
Fair
you might
enough.
need to map them onto a keyboard key.
I'll just use a keyboard key.
Yeah.
I saw a thing about it on the forums the other day. Someone was asking that, so search around there. It might be there.
Will do.
Sean, are you there?
How'd you do it again?
We need to tick all 5 boxes except ATIS in the voice communication setup window. Great.
Excellent. So what I'll do now is I will quickly make a small transmission across the frequency, and everyone should, if everything works, be able to hear me. I knew there's one thing I forgot to tick. I forgot to tick the one button that actually lets me transmit. Radio check 1, 2, 3.
Got you 5.
Good.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, got it.
Excellent.
Lima Charlie.
So, we'll do is just check that everyone else is happy with transmitting. So, if we just go through in order, everyone just say hi or something. So, Alistair.
Radio check.
Okay, that's good. Chandler.
Hello.
Good. Joe.
Radio check.
Excellent. Jordan.
Not coming through.
Nothing for you, John. Was that you then?
Hello.
Yep,
That was me. Just
Yep,
did
that
you?
was you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, got you there. Mark.
Hello.
Excellent. Mackie.
Hello.
Miguel.
Com check.
Com check.
Excellent. Nathan. Yep. Peter.
Radio check.
Excellent. And finally, Richard.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Excellent. So that's
Just to interrupt. A note for Miguel and Richard: you need to change your TeamSpeak from voice activated, or separate the push to talk keys.
Okay.
Because we need to be able to hear you in each channel separately.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent. So everyone can hear each other. I would ideally like to show you what the frequency chat looks like, but unfortunately for me, the messages won't actually send across there. I don't know if you could try it, Chris. For me, the actual frequency chat doesn't work. Text chat, that is.
Yeah, you have to be logged in as a controller.
Yeah, that would explain everything. So what, as I can't actually demonstrate it, but if you all look into the bottom of EuroScope, where all your private chat messages and the server messages come up, you should all have a 121.0 as a selectable text box or a selectable option.
Yep.
So that'll come up automatically when you set a primary frequency. That is your text chat. So with vatsim, we do have some people that don't have microphones. We have some other people that, for example, are deaf or have speech impediments, and obviously they will use text chat in order to communicate with the controller. So whenever you get messages coming through the text, that they will appear in the particular frequency you've got selected, and it will show you who they come from as well. If you, as a slight side note, but it's worth knowing, if you want to send a text message to a particular person, rather than typing their call sign, if you just literally click on them, click on their aircraft, EuroScope will then select them as the target for the frequency message. So instead of having to type out some very long call sign every time, that's a quick way to do it. Just click to select and then just type, and it will automatically prefix the message with their call sign.
So it would be a good idea to have like a little database of copy paste messages as well. to
Yeah.
to follow the call
Yeah.
signs.
There are things known as an alias. Chris is going to cover that very, very shortly, but that is effectively your copy paste messages, generic messages, and specific messages that you can use to speed up your text chat. Chris will be covering that very, very shortly.
Sorry, once I've selected someone, how do I deselect them?
Click someone else.
Oh, okay.
Or press
hit escape.
escape.
Alright, thanks, yeah.
Okay, one last thing for me before I hand off to Chris. So earlier we talked about the controller list. One important thing with the controller list is it does give you the option to listen to other controllers. So if everyone very quickly just pops back into their voice communication setup, you'll untick our little frequency we made up, just so that's not going to affect anything. So if everyone just unticks that, so you can do multiple ones at once, but it does get a bit odd. So yeah, if everyone just makes sure you go in the voice communication setup and just untick our little frequency we just made, and everything should disappear from your frequency list. So just waiting for Mark and Matthew. Excellent. So if you go onto the control list, I'm going to hopefully pick one that isn't too busy. Can everyone see in the control list EGLL_2_GND?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. If you all right click on him, you'll get a list of options. One of them, the get ATC, we'll talk about later. Intercom stuff, don't use it. People don't like the intercom. Don't worry about that stuff for now. If you click listen to frequency, what that will do is that should bring you all onto the ground frequency. So now, for those of you who set up your secondary way of communicating, you should now hear that coming out through whatever output it was. We'll wait a few seconds. Hopefully, someone will speak. Whilst we wait for someone to speak, I will add that if you looked at your voice communication setup now, you will see that
On the ground,
it has created a voice. It has created a new entry for you, which allows you to listen to Heathrow.
There was a transmission there.
I heard that.
Yep.
Yep.
The
Yeah,
frequency's awfully weird. It's like 199.99.
Swiss
Yeah,
289 straight ahead.
when you
Hold
listen to
Lima
a
1.
controller, it can actually work out what that
Straight
the
ahead,
frequency part should be.
hold Lima
That
1
doesn't
69.
affect voice communications, because you can still, because that's all done by the channel they're using, but it will affect text communication. So if you want to also see the controller's text communications, you do have to also go back, fill in the actual frequency to the real frequency, which the Heathrow ground number 2 is 121.7, at which point you would also see the text message.
National P Kilo with Stand 555 with information Bravo
But for a quick, just listening
1015,
to the controller
requesting
speaking,
IFR clearance to
that's how you
Manchester.
would do it. Don't think we'll get any more transmissions on Heathrow. So if everyone now right-clicks on Heathrow again, you can click leave frequency, and then that will untick your listening, and you'll just return to solemn silence. Just waiting for the last couple of people to untick. Okay. So in this little bit, we've just covered how to actually set up your own frequency and also how to listen to others. I'm now going to hand back up over to Chris, who's going to go through a little bit more EuroScope communications.
Yeah, so Andy talked about voice communication a lot. We have, of course, a lot of text communication we can do. That's something nice about EuroScope. Let's say it's an ability that we have that they don't have in the real world. So in the real world, they're only using radio. They're only using the telephone to communicate with other controllers, or they're using electronic messages. So they're, for example, sending a message to be uplinked to the plane, which is a text message, or they're receiving an electronic message from another ATC unit. But we can actually have a text sort of chat, if you like. We can also write messages, ATC messages, and we can also get communications into us. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you should see maybe one or two, or maybe more different boxes. You should see one that says ATC. If you click on it one time, it should change color. It should go to being white, and it should show you probably 4 messages in there, maybe 3. Can anybody not see that?
I don't have an ATC thing.
Okay, type .chat space ATC.
I now do have an ATC.
Does it have 3 messages in it?
It has 4.
Okay, great. So in here, this is a channel which is well, predictably called the ATC channel, and the ATC channel allows us to leave messages for each other. You can see that these are messages of particular types of a particular type, let's say. So the first message is from LFFF_CTR, so the Paris control controller, and he says bonsoir online, I'm taking LFEE as well. So he's taking 2 sectors online, he's telling the adjacent ATC he's there, and he's basically alerting people to his presence. Then there's a couple of comments about the ATIS spam. There's a message from London North that he's back online, and then Heathrow Tower tells us that there's a go around. So these are messages of general of nature that need to go to more than one person, but you need to be aware that they go to all people. You don't control the end user. And these are not specifically for chatting, but for operational messages. So, hello, I'm online. Has anybody got this guy? Etc. Not for, hi, what did you have for dinner? Have you seen the snow today? And so on. Those are not the types of conversations we want to have there. You can have a private conversation, and to do that, you can send a private message to an individual. So you can do that by typing .msg space the call sign space the message. So if you type .msg space CJP_INS space, in fact, no, don't send it to me, delete that, send it to Andy instead. So do .message.msg space AF_INS for Andy Ford _INS, then do space and then type a nice hello message to Andy, and Andy will write a message back.
So .message space AF_INS and then your message.
.msg space the call sign you want to send the message to space the message you want to send, and then press enter.
Okay.
So you send that message to Andy, say hello, you'll see a box opens, and it says AF_INS in the box, because it tells you that you sent that message to Andy, and then you'll get a message back underneath from Andy saying hello back to you, if he's not gone off to drink a cup of tea or something.
Oh, I'm responding.
Okay.
As quick as I can.
So you'll
I
see
can confirm.
You'll see the message box then flash orange at you until you left click in it, and then when you click in it, it will stop flashing.
Shawsey said so with the ETS 21.22 update. Will the mod trucks work with the World of Trucks
So these
contracts?
messages are happening between 2 individual people. Only you and Andy can see those messages, nobody else. But they are still being logged, so they are part of the network, and you do need to make sure that you're following the network's rules and regulations when you're using them. The other type of message you can get is on the frequency. Andy mentioned that already. That would appear in 121.000, which may still be visible on your screen because you set a primary frequency for that, and that will open automatically 121.000. But there's nothing transmitted there. But if you did have something transmitted, it would have a timestamp and a call sign, and then it would tell you what message they sent you. And then it would show any messages you'd sent back. Finally, the other type of message you might see, but there are none been today, those are broadcast messages. Those messages are sent to all users who are currently connected to the vatsim network, and those are messages about particular servers going up or down. They might be about particular things that are happening on the network, like controller examinations, and they will inform you that they are taking place, mostly to inform pilots, but ATC will get them as well. If you click on the chat box with Andy, you'll notice that you now have a reply in the bottom, hopefully, and you might, for example, need to send a similar message to Andy again in the future, or even to somebody else, and you can press the up key on your keyboard, and it will display to you the previous message that you typed. So if you said a hello to Andy, it will now show you hello again, because you might need to say hello to Andy, or hello to, in fact, somebody else. If the information that Andy has sent to you is important, like for example if he sends you a flight plan and he wants you to use it, or maybe you've got to send a piece of text from one person to another, then you can use the Control and Up key, and that will tab through all the things that Andy has sent you.
When I use Control and Up, it actually goes through both.
Okay, yeah, it should go through everything that's in the box, not just Andy's messages. Sorry.
All right. Okay. Cool.
But if you press up, it only goes through yours. So if you wanted your message, you'd use the up key. If you wanted Andy's messages, you'd have to use the Control and Up key. And if you needed to scroll up or down through the text box, the chat box with Andy, if he'd sent you many things, you could use the up and down keys. Sorry, you could use the page up, page down keys.
Up and down arrows work.
Up and down arrows work, yeah. To get the things you sent to Andy, it's actually shift and up, not just up by itself. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, all the things you've sent to Andy should be shift and up. All the things are Control and Up, and to just tab through the boxes up and down. You can also use page up, page down.
There's a reason I've got a permanently selected box for some reason now. I can't say click ATC server message.
So you can't click ATC now?
I'm on 121.0, and I can no longer press escape to get rid of that, or click ATC server message or any other frequency.
I've no idea what you've done. You've broken it.
Right, brilliant. That's only taken an hour.
Just to make sure my EuroScope isn't broken, does anyone else have Glurn just sitting there on the right hand side?
Yeah, it's just that's fine. That's normal. People
Just wanted to make sure mine hadn't
just
dropped.
loll around. Of course, this as Andy mentioned, this isn't firstly an out-of-date map. This is just a layer.
Right.
This is just a picture, right? It doesn't. We just define this in one of the files. Everybody who's connected to the network has their own world in which they're sitting. They can have a completely different scenery from 25 years ago, but their position will just be displayed to us in an absolute sense. So he could be parked outside a hangar that's just not on this map, right?
Yeah, I just noticed him ages ago and he's still there, so just wondered.
Yeah. Just people come and listen. They do.
Are you saying that you can import your own graphics into this?
Yes, that's all we've done.
Oh, sweet.
Just make your own picture. It's just a picture with a data layered on top of it. It's nothing better than that. That's how the real system works. It's just a picture on the bottom and data laid on top. And then in our case, departure lists and controller lists and other things laid on top of the data. It's just a layered image, which we then have to interpret all the layers together. Andy mentioned about aliases. Someone mentioned about how they might need to write long, complicated text messages to pilots. Well, you can use something called an alias. There's a file in your controller pack, and most controller packs have alias files in them. And these minimize the amount of typing you have to do by pulling data out of the network, out of the setup you're using, and they can really speed up your controlling. We're not going to teach you about all of the different possibilities right now, but what you need to do is do the .test command. So in the if you find your chat box with Andy again, if it's still open, if you've closed it, then you can open it again with .chat space AF_INS and it will open again.
Or double click on the controller list.
Yeah, and then you need to type in the text box at the bottom dot and then the word test and then the space bar. And then, if you wish, you can send that to Andy again. But it's not required. He just loves the spam.
Spam, 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 spam.
Does anybody not get a message that appears when you do .test and space?
Instead, my EuroScope's just crashed.
Okay, nice. Okay, so that's how aliases work. As I said, the full information is available or will be in your controller pack and will be covered later. The last group of people, the last people you need to know about are supervisors. They are people who are spending time on the network to help people in situations where maybe they need conflict resolution, maybe people need support about how things work, need to know about the rules and the regulations of the network and so on. Supervisors should be somebody online most of the time, but it's not guaranteed. So to find a supervisor, and please don't do this now because you will send a message to them, you can use the command .wallop or .write all operators. It's abbreviated to .wallop and then space and then type your message. Don't do this now. If you need help, write .wallop and include a message about what help you need. So for example, .wallop, a pilot here not listening to my instructions, please can someone help? Or .wallop, I'm new and I am confused about what I should do in this situation, or something like that. And then a supervisor will send you a private message and say, hello, how can I help? Explain to me what's going on, and then they will instruct you what to do. Okay, any questions about messages?
How do you close like a message channel that you're not wanting to see anymore?
Double click it. And to open it again, you type .chat space and then the name of whatever it was. The .chat space server will open all the server messages, .chat space ATC will open all the ATC messages, and so on. Okay, Andy.
Okay, so when we kind of first connected to the network, I mentioned about controller info lines. So if everyone has a look, just back in the, if they click where they click connect, it will now say vatsim. If you click on that, it'll bring back up the connection dialog again.
Yep.
Can anyone not see those? Okay, so there's technically 4 info lines, but we're going to talk about info lines, the 3 main info lines. So when controllers log on, in these information lines, people will put in things that are generally considered useful to the pilots. So a common one is really all controllers should have, is the name of the position you're controlling or your call sign. So for example, if I'm controlling London Control, I will put in the top London Control so that people who call me know that they need to call me London Control. So if you're doing Bristol, you might be Bristol Ground, for example. Other information you might want to put in there, possibly a frequency for the ATIS information. So if people want to find out what the weather's like or what runway's in use, maybe popping in the frequency. For the ATIS is useful so they can go and find out what's going on at the airfield, and generally just other information that it's worth pilots knowing. It's not there for kind of general rubbish. It does serve a purpose, and that's to give pilots information. And when they tune to your frequency, the first thing that will appear on their pilot client is it will say, "Oh, you're connected to Bristol Ground, and his info is Bristol Ground, ATIS on, whatever." You know, it's information that the pilots will see when they connect to you. From the perspective of EuroScope, if you want to see another controller's ATIS, you need to right-click on them in the list, and then click on Get ATIS. So if everyone can see Lun_C_CTR in their list, right-click on him and then click Get ATIS. Is everyone happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what if you click that? What will happen is you'll get another text chat pop up. Don't type anything in there, because if you do, it will actually send them a chat message. But what will appear in the chat is it will show up if you arrow all the way up to the top. It'll say what voice server he's using, which is very important if you need to switch controllers on the fly. You want to use the same server. So you can find out what server he's using, and then you'll see below that the ATIS lines. So the ATIS lines are those three information boxes we just talked about. So for Mike on London Central at the moment, he's got London Control, which is his call sign, and then he's also got a link to our area sector diagrams. Again, useful information, because if a pilot doesn't know what area Mike controls, they can go to that web page and they can find out, oh, Mike covers the centre of the UK in Stansted and Luton. One at the bottom, expected log off time, not mandatory, but if you want to set a specific time that you think you're going to log off, by all means you're welcome to do so. Okay, now just a few points about what you see on the screen. So if everyone initially hits F1 and 1 to go to their ground view for Heathrow.
Yep.
So a few important things that you should see on here. So the obvious
User
ones,
joined your channel.
the big long strips going from right to left, as Chris has already mentioned,
User
one to the
disconnected
north side
from
of the
your
airfield,
channel.
and one to the south side of the airfield. Those are the runways. Some sector files will have them explicitly marked. Bristol, for example, has the runway quite explicitly marked. You can't miss it. Others, it will just be a line that you know a runway roughly exists there. The other ones, you'll see quite a few random numbers. So if you look at various points around the airfield, you'll see a number. Those are your stands. So going to the far left of the airfield, that's Heathrow Terminal 5, you'll see 509 through 518. Those are all stands. You can turn the numbers on and off if you wish to. I would generally suggest you have your stand numbers on.
Can you change the color of them?
Yeah, you can. If you want to find out about that, it's a little bit off topic for the moment, but I can certainly tell you how to do that during the during questions at the end or after the session. Other things important are holding points. So Heathrow is a bit special in that you have named holding points. So if you look over to the left of Heathrow, you'll see Oster and Hawker. So those are named ones. Most airfields don't have named ones. They tend to have a letter and a number, or two letters. So Alpha 1, Alpha 3, etc. Some of these holding points, depending on which airport you control, they might actually be marked with a line so you can actually see where they are. In other cases, it will just be the designator next to it. So if everyone looks to the left side of Heathrow, down by runway 27 left, question the 09 right, you should see Hawker, Oster, Vickers, Dasso and Hanley, which are all named holding points. Everyone happy so far?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And the final thing for the ground, taxiways. Again, they depending on the sector file, they may look differently. Some sector files will show, say taxi lines. Other ones, like this particular one, will just show a black line, or some way of distinguishing that it is a piece of tarmac. it will, in this case, it would be up to you to know this is a taxiway, and alternatively, the nice thick chunk of black line is actually a runway. So representation does vary, but generally speaking, taxiways are kind of a grey-black colour, and runways are generally the same. Anything that's green is probably grass. Okay. Now, if everyone just does F1 and 2 and jump out to your radar display. So a few main features on the radar display. You should all see rather large plus symbols dotted around Heathrow at various places, and one right on top of it.
Yeah.
So those are what we call VORs. It stands for VHF Omni Range. Very simply, those are navigational beacons. They are being phased out in the UK at the moment, but for the moment they do still exist, and they're quite major in terms of flight planning and departures. So on your screen, the big pluses will be your VORs. You may see little circles. I don't think they're turned on this pack in default. If you see a little circle with lots of little circles inside it, that is also known as NDB, or a non-directional beacon. It is another form of navigational aid, similar to a VOR. And then finally, the very small pluses are fixes. These fixes, there are a few types of them. We won't go into that right now. All I can say about fixes are they are just another navigational point. VORs and NDBs have identifiers. So, for example, Bravo India Golf, which is just to the southeast of Heathrow, is called Biggin. Just to the northwest of Heathrow, you've got Bravo November, which is Bovingdon. The fixes have a 5-letter identifier, and it's generally some word that is related to where they are. So, for example, Woburn is actually based over a place called Woburn, funnily enough. So the fixes all have 5-letter identifiers, and they are generally pronounced how the word is spelt. You'll also see a lot of straight lines with little ticks along the lines. Especially at Heathrow, you should see 4 of them. Those are your runway extended centre lines. So for Heathrow, you'll have one for each of the 4 runways, and the ticks going along, they just literally show the distance from the runway. Depending on how you're set up, you may have ticks every 1 mile. You may have ticks every 2 miles. Heathrow and Gatwick definitely have 2 miles. If you look down to the southwest at Southampton, you will realise that it's every mile. It just depends entirely on the setup as to whether you get 2 or 1. That's probably what you need to know in terms of things you might see. In terms of some of the major airports, I did mention it earlier. Looking right in the centre of your screen at the moment, you would see obviously Heathrow. Just to the south, slightly to the east of that, what looks like another big bit of airspace. If you're watching, you may see KLM 624 approaching it. That's Gatwick. Directly to the east of Heathrow is London City. To the north-east, you've got Stansted and Luton. And if you go all the way over to the west, about 80 miles to the west, you'll see kind of 2 airports kind of hiding away over there. That's Bristol, and further west, Cardiff. Going even further north, if you really want to look, you can also see Manchester, but that's quite a long way away. Anyone got any questions about things that you can see on EuroScope?
You mentioned those plus symbols. How do you find their 5-letter identifier or whatever?
That is again something that comes in your settings. So
okay, all right.
The short answer is if you look in your display settings later on, you'll see there'll be a tick box for fixes, and you just have to turn on for each fix. You just have to turn on the name, and that will then display next to the fix. It will say this fix is called Dagger, for example. I wouldn't turn too many of those on. It does make things quite clustered, but useful for maybe a couple that you need to remember. And back to Chris.
Yep. So we're nearly done. We just got a couple of things to talk about, and then we'll be finished in 10 minutes or something like that. We need to we want to show you how to connect to our training server. It's called the Sweatbox because it's the place where we make you sweat. You in your EuroScope, where it says in the top left-hand corner the vatsim logo is located. Click it one time, it will open the connect dialog. Press the disconnect button at the bottom, and then on the right-hand side, underneath rating, there's a box for server. From the drop-down menu, choose Sweatbox, and then press connect. That's all you need to do. You should see exactly the same as what we just saw. The weather will reload, and you'll see now a list of controllers who are entirely in this session, and nobody now who is from the network. You'll see no planes on the ground, and it's basically a fresh server ready to go. And Chandler, we're just waiting for you to join us.
It says I'm on the Sweatbox.
Does it? Okay. Do you see anything on the ground? Nothing at all.
Nope.
Just type in the bottom .vis space EGLL and then enter. Yeah, okay, I see you now. Good. So this is the Sweatbox. Well, what's the point? We've just removed all the traffic. Well, what this allows us to do actually as the mentors, as the trainers, is generate all the traffic we need, put it and control it in design scenarios specifically for your training. So this is a nice place for us to introduce people to the network. So your first few mentoring sessions will be here. It's also a good place to test people out just before their exam to see if they've got the skills needed to get through the examinations. And that's the end of our session this evening, so thanks for following through. Andy's got some more information for us, and then I'm going to talk about the next steps.
Okay, so really now just a few kind of useful bits and bobs, documents, etc. that you'll find very useful in your training. So the first one that Chris mentioned at the start of the training is the VAT-UK Moodle course. This is the kind of the next step. It's designed to kind of cover all the theoretical basics of your rating, and that upon completion of that, that's when you get put into, as Chris said, into the training system to have sessions with mentors. You've also got the VAT-UK documentation. So on our homepage we have a large list of documentation that you can use. This is both airfield specific documentation and also generic widely applicable documentation, as well as other various bits and bobs, including pilot clients, controller clients, crib sheets, you name it, we've got something like that for you. Also very, very important is the NATS AIP. So the NATS AIP is the source of all the airfield charts, or by and large all the airfield charts, depending on where you go. So when you're doing mentoring sessions, the NATS AIP is where you can find the charts for your aerodrome, where your holding points are, where your stands are, also all the departures, and the various other things like controlled airspace. We also have the VMATs, which are virtual versions of real-world documents. Those are, if you will, your gospel for when you're controlling your local aerodrome. Those are the local procedures. So anything that's specific to a local aerodrome and is not entirely generic will be found in your local procedures in the VMATs. This is also supplemented by the official CAA documents. We have CAP 413, which is the phraseology manual, which is how to say certain things, and also CAP 493, which is it's also known as the MATS Part 1, whereas the VMATs, or in the real world, MATS Part 2 is the local stuff. The MATS Part 1, CAP 493, is the generics. So CAP 493 is your this is generally how to do things, and your VMATs is this is how specifically we do things locally. Controller client documentation, you have the EuroScope wiki. I cannot for the life of me remember the link, but if you Google it, there is a wiki that is completely dedicated to how to use EuroScope. You also do have lots of very experienced controllers around that UK who I'm sure if you ask them nicely, they will be more than happy to tell you how to do things with EuroScope. And finally, some other useful software. So vatspy is a very useful program. It's effectively like an eye in the sky on vatsim. You can look on vatspy to see who's online controlling, what aircraft are online, where they're flying. So for example, if you fancy a bit of controlling, you can see where a few people are flying in, and log on a position that will help them. And you can also use that. So if you want to control, you can see who else is currently online and take a position that no one else has taken yet. There is also an old piece of software called SimSRD. Nowadays, it's quite outdated. So what you want to look for, if you want that, is what's known as the NAT standard route document. And that document is just a big list of standard routes for flying places. It doesn't necessarily represent gospel. As I said, SimSRD itself is quite outdated now, but those are the proposed routes for flying around the UK. So if you need to find a route for flying between two UK airfields, because trust me, there are some dodgy routes that crop up now and again. If you need to find a route for a pilot, check the SRD, and that will have suggested routes that they can use. And for all of those, Chris has posted lovely, pretty links at the bottom, which will link you to each of them.
Okay.
Chris?
Yep. Okay, so what happens now, you need to go back into Moodle if you haven't already finished the training course. You need to go through Moodle and achieve the S1 theory examination, which you get allowed to take after you finish the theory course. Once you've done that, of course, you've finished today's sessions. Everyone who's still here, now we're going to forward your names as having completed one of these sessions. And as a result of that and the theory course, then your next step is to choose a training aerodrome. The next step, this step is choosing the aerodrome where you're doing a practical training. And the current training aerodromes that we are training people at in the UK are the following: Birmingham, Bristol, East Midlands, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Liverpool, London City, London Gatwick, London Luton, London Stansted, and Manchester. In order to manage demand, we're not able to offer places at all aerodromes all of the time, so you will only see a limited selection of the list above to choose at any moment. As we expect that you'll be doing all of your training and most of your controlling at that aerodrome, we strongly recommend that you select the aerodrome you want the most. That means that you might have to wait till there is a place available at your favourite aerodrome, as your favourite might not be available from that selection. In order to choose a training aerodrome, you need to select RTS and then transfer in the RTS menu, in the system menu. When you select an RTS and clicking request, it will take you to a list of the available aerodromes in that RTS. So you need to know where your aerodrome is in order to choose the right RTS. If you look right now, probably you will not see anything because you need to look back in a few days to check which aerodromes will be available. When they are made available, they're available for at least 24 hours, so you don't need to check the system every 15 minutes. And if you've been able to submit a request to move RTSs to join one of the aerodromes, it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a space for you, because there may be like 15 people ahead of you in the queue. And it will take up to 72 hours for your request to be finally processed. You'll get an email from the RTS system saying that you've been transferred. It will introduce you to the training in that RTS, and you'll then be able to request sessions from the session management page in the student menu. Then you'll be doing individual sessions in that RTS you'll be asked to put in availability when you're available for training, and somebody will then pick up some training and meet you in TeamSpeak and organise your training. They will cover all the practical aspects of controlling, and when you're at a sufficient level, then you'll be upgraded to the next level. Does anybody have any questions about the next stages of training or anything that was not covered today or anything like that?
I just want to confirm, on the Moodle page, it's the S1 introduction stuff, right?
Yes.
Just one thing, with Gatwick training, am I correct if I remember you need to get an endorsement before you're allowed to do that?
Not to start training, you can be trained on Gatwick without an endorsement, but to control solo on the ground, you need an endorsement.
Thank you.
But that's incorporated, it's integrated with the training process, it's just an extra stage. Let's say. Okay, if there are any other questions, you can send them via the help desk and somebody will answer them. We will start the ball rolling on the paperwork from today's session so that those people who've already passed the S1 exam will be able to move RTSs. And thanks for coming, and thanks Andy, thanks Barry. Have a good evening, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you very
See
much.
Well,
Thank you very
very
much.
Again, yeah, take care.
Thanks, goodbye.
Bye.
User disconnected from your channel. User left your channel. User disconnected from your channel. User disconnected from your channel. Disconnected.